From my childhood, I loved telling stories. So my mother often say how talkative a kid I was. I would tell her long stories about what happened in my school, and I often spiced it up with my imagination. So for me, telling stories is a vital part of my life. Been something that stayed with me the longest. It amuses me to take something mundane and spin it into something intriguing, mysterious, or funny. So when I see a stranger going about their work, it amuses me to think about their life, what they're going through, their dark secrets, trauma, happiness, fantasies, or frustrations. So it's such a fun thing to do actually. So for me, writing or creativity is a way of defeating the passivity. It's a way to make my humdrum life more interesting. So in that sense, I'm primarily writing for myself. It's my way of not getting bored with this life. And I also love how people react to my writing. It gives me immense happiness when someone says that my writing entertained them or moved them. So before becoming a writer, my life often moved in an autopilot mode. I was floating over days, going to office, taking off my to-do list. But writing gave me a richer life, a more mindful life. I think that's what creativity means, and it's not reserved for artists. Creativity is a way of life, a more mindful way of living. It's about looking around and experiencing way in a more involved way, like paying attention to simple things, like how the boiling water changes color when tea leaves diffuses in it, or how the evening sky has different color profiles every day. For me, the life as a creative person or a writer is a richer way, a more powerful and beautiful way to live.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I'm your host Sangeeta, aka the Moody Marshmallow. You just heard our guest for today, Shalini Vineeth. Shalini is a fiction and freelance writer. She has worked for 10 years as an engineer before turning into a full time writer in 2018. Since then, she has published 5 books and travel guides. Her stories have appeared in magazines like Out of Print, The Bangalore Review, Borderless Journal, and Kitab International. Before we move into the conversation, I am happy to share that the Closet Writer Chronicles has been nominated for the Podmasters Awards celebrating excellence in Indian podcasting, and we've been nominated under the Arts and Entertainment category. Voting has begun and it closes on 10th Feb. This wouldn't be possible without the amazing community of mentors, well-wishers, guests, and most importantly, you, the listeners. So this is a win for you guys as much as it is for us. So show some love and be sure to vote for the Closet Writer Chronicles in the link given in the description. Now let's tune in to hear about Shalini's journey with writing, identity, stories, and more. Hi everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. This week I have with me Shalini Vineeth. Welcome to the show, Shalini. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I know. So, for the audience, just to kind of put it out there, so I actually met Shalini at a fiction appreciation workshop. I think, if I remember correctly, that's what it was. It was about South Asian fiction and literature. So that's how I know you. And it's so funny that now we're like sitting here and talking about the work you're doing and the journey you've had. Um, so, on that note, the first question I want to ask you is, what is your earliest memory of being creative, and what is also your earliest memory of like writing?
Yeah, so I started writing at a very, very young age. So, like, as far as I can remember, I have been writing. So, maybe it could be like my fifth or fourth standard.
So I studied in a school where literature is of very much importance. So we had the school had a lot of importance to literature, and our Malayalam teachers, and like Malayalam was the main communication medium for that time, and all the Malayalam teachers were very much oriented towards literature and writing and things like that. So I felt like even from very young age, like third or fourth standard, the teachers kind of encouraged to write a lot outside our academic work. So I remember like we have very frequent school magazines and like travelogue writing, all activities related to writing. I think that is the first encouragement I got to write. And then I remember keeping, so I had a school magazine. I used to work with that when I was in the lower primary itself. Then I had my own magazine, so I had a personal magazine. I asked my mother to buy me a record book, the one which we have in colleges, like that big record book. And yeah, I and I it was my own magazine. So I used to write in like in the style that we have our school magazine. I used to adorn it, and I think within 2 3 years I made it into a complete full-fledged magazines with all everything. So at that time I, like, very innocent writing, whatever I felt like I wrote. And but I think my mother still have it. Because she keeps everything. Yeah, she keeps everything I wrote from, I don't know, my earlier, the first story I wrote. She has kept everything. So I maybe she even have it now. So that I think writing has been like a part of me. Even I that time I was not thinking like consciously about writing. But I think when I look back now, I when people ask me like when did you start writing, I feel like I've been writing since I can remember. So probably writing has been the thing that stayed with me the longest. So and also like when I throughout the like school days, like from lower primary to high school, then I published my first short story in Mathrubhumi weekly when I was 16 years old. So it was in Malayalam. And so there also, like, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of people supporting me throughout my writing journey, be it the teachers at school and my aunts, like my mother's maternal aunts. Both of them are like good writers and readers. So they were like, they have not written professionally, but they used to write a lot. They are kind of closet writers, both of them. So they encouraged me to read. They used to read when I was very young. Maybe like it was not even age appropriate for me. They used to read like novels and like really novels for adults, and the novels like written by M.T. Vasudev and Nair, Vaikom Mohammed, Basheer, Kamala Das. They used to just, because they wanted to read and they have to take care of me, so they just kept me by their side and they started reading it. So I remember all that. That was my earliest memories, and I kind of really connected to Malayalam literature at a very young age. I really feel like Kamala Das, Kamala Suraya, her pen name is Madhavi Kutty. So she and Vaikom Mohammed Bashir are like two of my biggest inspirations, and I kind of really feel connected to them. I have never seen them. I never had a chance to communicate with them, but through their writings, I feel like I've been connected to them. So all those early influences has been very crucial. But at that point I didn't have any any idea that I'm going to pursue writing, even though it was just like a hobby or something which you do for yourself. Or like, yeah, it was more of a hobby for me, and also a way for me. When I think about it now, I feel that it was a way for me to kind of make sense of the world around me. So I just, like I told you earlier, whenever I had a tough time or whenever go through something I don't understand, I always try to write about it to kind of make sense. So by the time when I write about it, sometimes I felt like, yeah, things are now clear for me. So, or I'll get more questions about it. So I think it was a kind of way to make sense of things around me as a kid, and also a kind of a resort when when you can't talk to anybody about something you are going through. I always and I used to keep a journal from very young age. So I have my journals from when I was I think at high school. probably high school till I always kept a journal, and I normally don't read them nowadays because some of them are too embarrassing, but it's fun. So I think journaling has been a big part of my life. Yeah. So all those writing.
No, but that's so cool because I think there was a lot I related with what you said, just in terms of, because even for me, like if you ask me, like when was the first time I like enjoyed writing, or like my earliest memory of it was in school in English class. And I always used to say that, it's, this sounds so crazy also, because like I used to enjoy my English exams, especially like my English two papers. I used to love that essay writing piece at the end, and I would leave it for right at the end because I used to find it so therapeutic, and I would just have fun with it. Like I write whatever based on the topic, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. So I relate to that whole thing of writing, for the school magazine and whatnot. And it's really cool that you made your own magazine, which that's damn creative, I think. But having said that, obviously, you had this affinity, and okay, it was like a hobby and whatnot. But you kind of went down the path of engineering, which I feel like a lot of like Indian students in a way kind of go that path, and I'm increasingly realizing how many of them don't stick with it after a point. But like what was kind of your trajectory of why did you really make that choice of, hey, let me study engineering, and you, because you worked as a full-fledged software engineer for like 10 years and then made the switch. So like what was that thought process like, and that journey for you in terms of, okay, I'm studying engineering, I'm going to work for you, and then suddenly you make the switch.
So I was like, so actually my in my case, I was not typically oriented towards engineering when I was doing my my plus one 11th and 12th. I was not very much interested in engineering per se, so it's a kind of a very interesting story how I ended up in engineering. So after my 12th standard, so I didn't appear for any of the entrance examinations engineering because I wanted to go for physics. So I got an admission in Farooq College in Calicut, and I got an admission and everything was ready. I was about to go, and then what happened was I was my mother is a teacher, and I usually during my vacations I used to go to the office and help the clerk with something. So I used to just go there and help her. So the clerk, so it was during my 12th summer vacation, right after I got admission for physics. So the clerk told me, hey, there is a career session going on in the upstairs. Why don't you go and join them? So I told her, no, I don't want to go because I already chosen physics and I'm going for physics. Uh, then she told, no, just go. It will be fun, and they have like snacks, and also you go. So I went. So there was this person, his name is I think B.S. Warrior. He's a very famous career consultant in Kerala at that time. So he was giving the session. So he talked to a lot of people, interacted with a lot of students, and he asked me about my 12th marks. And so it was pretty good. And then he asked me like, what are you going to do? So I told I didn't give any engineering entrance examination, so I'm going to go for physics. Then he asked me, have you heard of Bits Pilani? No, I was like, oh no, I have never heard of it. Then he's like, a person with your mark can easily get into physics in Bits Pilani. Or Bits Pilani is a very famous college, and so that time because I'm from Wayanad, and I was not even like, it was the time before internet and everything, so there was no information revolution, and my exposure to the world was very limited at that time. So he told, why don't you go try, just apply it, the application has just started. So you then okay, I thought, okay, why not, like I applied, but not for physics actually. So then I realized it's an engineering college. And actually then suddenly there are some people in our local, so my father works for BSNL. So there are some people told him that it's a very good college, why she want to go for physics, she can go for engineering, and she'll get an admission also. So suddenly, like, all the things went into motion, like in 1 or 2 weeks suddenly the application went in. And I was in a kind of a haze whether to go for engineering. I was like, but then what happened, I realized that there is a new campus in Goa. And I got so excited. This is so stupid. Okay, I mean,
It was Dil
I,
Chahta Hai before Dil Chahta
yeah,
Hai.
I admit it's so stupid. I was like, oh, the college is in Goa. Then why not? Okay, I mean, I was like, it's the same. I mean, I have always been like this. I've been very impulsive. So my parents, they didn't force me or anything. They told me, "Do you really want to go? I mean, you already got an admission. This is something very different. Do you want to go for engineering?" I told, "Why not? I'll go and try. What is the big deal?" So as usual, I just jumped into it because I wanted to go to Goa, and I was so happy because 4 years in Goa is like what more you can ask for, and you get an engineering degree on the side.
I love how that was the driving force. I get to be in Goa for 4 years and there's engineering on the side.
And also I was like, okay, then why? And I can actually, like, I studied in Calicut for 2 years, my 11th and 12th. So I wanted to go to a new place. Like, why should I again go and to Calicut and study physics? I was not even, when if I, like, frankly, I was not even bothered about the consequences of my action. I mean, I don't care, okay, whatever. So it became like a destiny. I went into the Goa campus. I studied engineering, and it was such a fun. I mean, I don't know, this is just pure destiny. Okay, I feel that way because Goa, studying in Bits Pilani Goa campus has been one of the most transformative experiences in my life. Not too much in the engineering aspect. I studied engineering. I passed. So let it. We can just like have it at that. But the other things, like I met my husband in Goa, Bits Goa, and I met my best friend in Bits Goa. So, like, it has been a transformative experience for me. And then as usual, I got placement, and I came to Bangalore, and I worked for, like, so then I started working. Like, my first job was with Sony. I was working with a Sony Bravia TV. So I was in a semiconductor industry initially. So then then while I was working, then I started working, I realized that this may not be a good career option for me. Very late realization. So but still, yeah, I mean, I tried to do my best. But the thing was, I was not very passionate about engineering. Like, I came to know, I realized during the final years and during my internship, during the few years of my working, I realized engineering was not my thing. Then I went for MTech. So that I thought, okay, I quit my job at Sony and I went for MTech. I thought, okay, maybe I could teach. Maybe that may be my passion. Like, a lot of people do that, right? So I went for MTech. And after I did my MTech, I was damn sure I don't want to do engineering. but still, but still, I didn't know what else to do, right? I don't have nothing. I mean, I have only engineering degree, and now I have an MTech on top of that. I was like, oh my god, it's so heavy. What do I do now? Then I went into Broadcom. I worked in Broadcom for almost six years, and the work was very good. I worked in Bluetooth. It was cool, like, it was very cool, and the work culture. I never had any trouble with this so-called corporate politics or anything. I know no job pressure because we are overstuffed actually at that time. So we didn't usually don't have work.
Yeah.
So
Wow, touch wood. That's amazing to hear.
but but for me personally, I cannot thrive in an environment where there is no passion. I cannot, no, I cannot go on working. I couldn't kind of settle for that kind of a life, like where I'm, because my all my colleagues were like very good engineers. They were very talented and they were so passionate about engineering. So during our conversation, I would just sit there and, like, okay, I am not even in this world. Okay, I'm not connected to whatever they are saying. I will just go to office and I'll just do my work. I come back. I'm not connected to that world, and I'm not passionate about what they are doing. Okay, they are doing something, but it's not like, I'm not finding any purpose in what I'm doing. So during all these times, like, I think from 2011, I reconnected with writing. So during my engineering course in Goa, I stopped writing completely. So from 2000, I think 4 to 2009, 10 time, I didn't write anything. Like, yeah, I wrote like little bit here and there, but not anything professionally or anything. So 2011, I started a blog in Malayalam. So at that time, this blogspot, like, revolution was going on. So a lot of people were getting on to Blogspot and they were writing a lot. So all my Malayali friends were on Blogspot. So we made a little community like all the Malayali writers, and I still have that blog spot where I used to write Malayalam stories. From 2000, I think 11 to 2013, 14, I wrote, and there has been a very good response to my story. So that's how I realized, oh, maybe I could do this. I mean, not full time, but yeah, I can write. So there are a lot of comments, and we used to comment like it was like a community mostly. We only like there is no readers as such, only writers reading each other's work on Blogspot and patting on each other's back, saying, "Yeah, yeah, you're so good." But still, it was a kind of a confidence boosting thing. Then I started traveling a lot. I started writing travelogues in Malayalam first. So then I have a lot of friends who don't read Malayalam. I mean, they are from other states and they cannot understand what I'm writing. So they asked me, translate your travelogues to English. So some of them I tried translating and I found for me, easy to write, easier to write in English than in
Oh,
Malayalam.
that's
Because
surprising.
Malayalam was like, because maybe during my engineering and my job, I didn't have so much friends as Malayali. So I usually converse in English a lot. And also I started reading English a lot. So I started translating. So actually my English writing started with these travelogues. So I have a travel website also. Where I have written a lot nowadays. I'm not writing that much. So I wrote almost 100 plus travel articles in that. So that was my practice to write because I was not yet confident about writing fiction as such. So then I think in 2018 I had a baby. 2017 I had the baby, and then I was in maternity leave. So I thought, why not try writing a fiction in English? Like I had a lot of time on my hands, and okay, so I thought. Then I not translated, adapted one of my short stories into a novella in English, and it was called Magic Square. So that is my first book. That's how it came about. So this Malayalam story had the entire structure and everything. The entire plot was there. I just had to expand and put it into an English format. So I think I wrote it in like 3 4 months because the story had been like I've been developing that story from so many years and wrote it in Malayalam. So it was an easy process, and I really enjoyed writing it. So I published it in Kindle Pen to Publish contest also I participated. So that's how I think if you ask about my like from engineering I came to writing. So it has been a systematic process but an unplanned systematic process. So I always believe that like maybe destiny had it that whatever I do wherever I go I will end up in writing. So then the decision to quit my job was I think the most difficult decision I have taken, like the most difficult decision I have taken so far, because I went to a point that I have been writing so much. I was so occupied on all weekends. I was like even sneaking out time and writing in my office, which made me very uncomfortable because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to write on their time. So I became such a dilemma for me because right at by that time I think I have become so obsessed with writing. Like I was like it has become an obsession, and I couldn't go on working and writing, and also I had the kid, so I have to do all these together. So there was a point because I have been in a dilemma for months. I remember almost 6 7 months. I was every day I would be consumed with this thought whether to work or whether to write. It has been a very, and there was, for me it was kind of like there are a lot of people who write and work. They do it both together. They can do it. But for me, it come to a point that I cannot go on working and writing, mainly because probably I was not so passionate about my work also. So I used to feel very, very kind of depressed after my work day, and I couldn't write much. So then I thought, like, yeah, I had to make a decision. It's a time. It is that I felt, I don't know, somehow I felt the time has come. As I made my decision to join engineering, as I made all other decisions in my life, I kind of felt, yeah, the time has come, so I have to take the decision. I talked to everybody in my family, and they were like, they were okay because by this time they are used to these kind of decisions from me. They know
Wow.
that they know they are like they expect this kind of things from me, and they're not very surprised. They're like, yeah, we were expecting this. We knew that it's going to happen sometime. because then they were all cool, so happy. Like my parents and my in-laws and my husband especially, he told me like, do I mean you can always come back. Engineering is like a very very diverse field. You can do anything you want. You can teach, or you can again go back into the industry. Very forgiving world engineering is. So,
Really? That's
yeah,
surprising to hear.
I mean, you can go into different roles actually, and also like you don't have to be in the specific role, and you can also upskill yourself. So he told it's okay. You take 2 years. You try for 2 years from 2018 or 19 to 2021. You just try. If you're not working out, you can always say that I took a maternity leave and then I'm coming back to the workforce. Everybody will take you because it's a policy for many companies to take back, mothers who are coming after their maternity break. So I told you are on a safe side, no problem. Then I entered into writing like in 2009, 18. I used to write a lot before that, but I started writing full time, like obsessive writing from 2018. And I never, even for a day, felt like I have to go back to engineering. I mean, I cannot think about it now. I mean, I cannot even imagine going back. Yeah, I can do anything technical. Like I am writing technical stuff actually, but I cannot go back to that kind of a 9 to 5 job. And I cannot imagine not writing full time now. So that has been like, I feel like, yeah, that was the right time to take that decision. Because I don't know, maybe with a lot of responsibilities in life, we tend to, I have seen many people like just wither away. Their creativity withers away. After, they will be very excited at the beginning. They'll do a little bit of writing here and there, and they're very good actually. They may be good.
Yeah.
This just withers away. This very difficult thing to do, to have a full time job, a kid and a family, and then write full time. It's very difficult. Yeah, especially if I think for a woman, it's very difficult. So I think it was a good decision I took. just like just like the way I went to Goa, I have no regrets about it. So just like that, I have no regrets about this either. But yeah, sometimes, yeah, I kind of think about, oh my God, what will happen in the future? What is going to happen? Because there is a lot of like uncertainty in the creative field, especially in writing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm just hanging in here. So far, so good.
No, that's amazing because I mean I think it helps that you had that kind of support also, right? Like internally with your family and your husband, like saying that, hey, like give it a shot. Like they were supportive enough to say that, okay, we know that you like this, so give it a fair shot and see how it goes, and then there are backup plans in case something doesn't work out. Like I think it was practical, but at the same time they understood you and they made the attempt to be like, okay, let's give this a fair chance, which I think is really cool. And like because I know it's also tough, like you said, for a lot of people with a lot of responsibility, it becomes really difficult sometimes to keep up with your passion in whatever capacity, because life happens, it's not as simple to do it. So I think more power to you, and I think your support system, like your family and everyone who've really like helped you kind of find your path in that sense. But you mentioned that since you were giving yourself that chance between 2019 to like 21, I mean, that was also the pandemic period. So then, how are you then navigating during
Uh,
that?
no, no, but it was actually like, for me at least, it was everyone was sitting at home, and I was also sitting at home. So that was like, I didn't feel like left out. I didn't, because I am not going to office and they are also not going. Nobody's going anywhere. So I was like, I got a kind of a initial jump start sitting at home thing, because I felt like, okay, everybody's sitting at home. I'm also sitting at home and writing. And the pandemic time has been a very prolific time for me for writing this, because there is no other distraction. There is nothing else to do. You can't go anywhere. You can't even go to a movie. No outings, no travel. So I just sat at home and I just wrote, and I was like, so just I was also in that honeymoon period of my writing. So I was so excited, and I remember like I wrote that I took up a project called 21 Days, 21 Stories. So I just wrote 21 first drafts. each first draft in a day. So it was like kind of challenge for me. I just set it up for myself, and I wrote 21, and I just posted the first draft as it is on Facebook for my on my website for the readers to give comments and all. Then these 21 stories in that pandemic, like 1 or 2 months, the 21 stories has actually kind of went to different places. It got published, I think out of 21, I think 20, 18, 17 got published in various literary magazines. And basically I was actually polishing that 21 stories throughout the pandemic, and also I was writing my novel. So actually, yeah, when I think about it, pandemic time I have been writing like anything, and I didn't kind of feel, thankfully we no one got affected by it in my family, at least. So but it was a depressing time, so I tried to keep my spirits up by doing all this, but I have been actually enjoying, to admit it. And I know that it has been a very tough time for a lot of people. And another thing was, at that time people started opening up a lot. So when I put out a open call, an anonymous call for stories from people, not just pandemic, anything about their life. I wanted to write these 21 stories. I wanted some plots. So I told, like, you can have this Google form, you can write whatever you want, whatever is bothering you or any experience. And I was amazed by the response I got. I mean, it was just among my friends, and it was not like a big project or anything, but it was anonymous, so I don't know whose experience is that. So at least 5 to 6 stories I got from those experiences, and people wanted some way to vent out during that time. So that Google Doc I shared, and I got a lot of responses. Most of so much was rant, and people are so frustrated, and but still I got a lot. I think 4 or 5 good stories I got out of that, which got published in like 1 or 2 anthologies, and one was in a literary magazine. And then when I published the story, I wrote, this is the experience, like I wrote it in paraphrased, and wrote that this was the experience shared with me, and this is the story I wrote. And surprisingly, 1 or 2 people came back, told me that this is my experience. That was so I didn't know what to say. Like, I was like, I mean, how to respond to this kind. So there was a story about a domestic abuse, which was a very serious thing. She told, like, see, I got divorced, and it was an old thing, but when I read the story, I felt I got a kind of a closure. I mean, I felt like it's all done and dusted now. It has become a story. so so the pandemic has been that way. It has been like a kind of very, very productive time for me, at least. No.
Yeah. No, that's amazing because again, I mean, I resonate because it's so crazy because for me, I got like into the whole like my decision to get into publishing and like this whole writing career thing also happened during the pandemic because like I remember like my first poetry pieces got like my first published piece was a poem in an anthology which came out in Feb 2020. So this was like right before lockdown, and I was like very, and I was so like clear at that point in my life, like yeah, I'm going to like move to another city and I'm going to study and work side by side and do this, that, and all. And then everything just closed and I was like, what do I do with my life? And similar to your this thing, April was national poetry writing month. So I took up the 30 poems in 30 days thing, and I joined a writing group which was doing 20 prompts in 20 days. So I wrote like some 50 pieces in that 1 month, and I was like, so I completely like resonate with where you're at. So it's insane, I think, how like life can, like it was a very sad time, definitely. I mean, I think all of us were very fortunate and privileged to not have it as bad as so many other people. But when you really look at the silver lining of it all, it's crazy that sometimes it took the world to stop for you to find something you actually like doing, which is
Yes,
crazy.
yes. And I think that stillness of everything, right? Because you know that you have to be like, just stay still. You cannot do anything. You cannot, I mean, as a common person, there is not much for us to go out. We are not even permitted to go out. So what else we could, like, I remember, but I wrote a lot on Facebook at that time. Like, I used to write, like, there is something called Tiny Tales I used to write. That was more about patriarchy and how women feel when they are get stuck inside a house, because the pandemic has been very difficult and different for women compared to men, because they had like additional things. So there are a lot of things going on. A lot of women were very frustrated, and they had to handle a lot of things. So I wrote these tiny tales. That was also on my way of kind of dealing with the pandemic and dealing with the experiences I was hearing from a lot of people. And surprisingly, it got a lot of responses. I mean, I think it pissed off a lot of men because some of them came and picked up fights with me
Oh wow, okay.
on the on the on the like direct message and things like that. They kind of picked up fight. Like, I mean, they were trying to saying that we are not like this. I told, like, see, it's not about you. I mean, it's about the general experience of people. It's not about you or men in general. But I think that kind of resonated with a lot of women because they were like, and I could feel it. And surprisingly, I wrote, I think, around 28, 30 pieces of tiny tales. And after a point, I couldn't. I don't know how I wrote it because I tried. It was just like, I think there was the 50-word limit. It was kind of a micro fiction. And after that, because it had a lot of acceptance, I wanted to write it again. But after the pandemic, when we moved on to normal life, I couldn't write it. I couldn't write them. I think that is maybe because of that, the strong emotions at that time, the things we were going through as a world, we are going through a lot. Maybe because that fueled the creativity in that way. And after that, I couldn't write microfiction at all. I tried my best.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a phase. Maybe I'm sure it'll come back at some point. I feel like there are always phases for certain kinds of writing sometimes. So yeah, I think suddenly there'll be another point in your life where you'll be back to microfiction and it'll just
Yeah,
come out.
maybe.
But having said that, then like, when did you make the decision to obviously like, I mean, one is you self published, which we'll get to, but then obviously, then when you're writing and then this whole thing of freelancing comes in, right? Because if you want to kind of turn it into a profession, then how did you kind of make that switch? Like, okay, I can even make money out of like this, because like in the long run you also have to be like the sad part is you have to be sustainable with this. You can't burn out like not doing anything. So then how do you make that sort of switch, that okay, and decision that I'll freelance?
So the like for 1 year, I think in 2019, I just wrote fiction, like because I was right out of like my job, and I was writing fiction in 2019, and I was not thinking about freelancing. Or I had this kind of idea from very early on, like when I was working as an engineer. Also, I had this dream of writing and making money. Okay, that was just like a crazy dream for me. I thought like it may never ever happen, because at that time I felt it's very very crazy thing to do. But anyway, I went ahead and did it. So, and then when in 2019 around June, I guess, I started feeling kind of bored, like, okay, I have nothing to do, just write fiction. And with fiction, you may not get inspiration every day. There will be days when you don't have anything to write. You're not in a mood to write anything. Then I thought about, okay, what can I do, like what can I do differently, like and something that will keep me from bored. So thankfully, actually, the Bitsian community, the Bits Pilani alumni community is like, so Bits Pilani is a very old institution. It started in 1960s. So it has a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, and everything. So our community, our alumni community is so strong, and we kind of support each other a lot. So what happened was, when I wanted to start writing technical content or whatever freelance content, I didn't know what to do. Okay, I didn't know where to start. So we have a Facebook group, around 35,000 alumni is there in that group. So I went and asked them. Like, I just put a post saying that, see, I was an engineer. Now I'm not. I mean, in the sense, I'm not working. Now I'm a writer. It may sound crazy to many of you, but I want job. Okay, I don't know what kind of job, but please give me some job. Then I was like, after posting that, I felt like so foolish. I mean, I thought of deleting it. Okay, why? I didn't know what to do. So suddenly, but surprisingly, two, three people came up and saying that, see, we have a startup. Okay, we one of them was my batchmates, and she told me, I have a startup. So why don't you write for us, like blogs? No, like we will pay you, like it won't be much, kind of 1 rupee per word thing. But I was like, oh, I felt, oh, that's a good idea, right? If I get, and I asked her, I remember asking her, will you pay for ease, a, and everything? She said, yeah.
But this is a relevant question. I mean, even when I started contributing, I was like, wait, how does the system of paper word work? Because even I never got it.
So she told, don't worry, we will edit out our every extra A you are writing, so don't worry about that. So I got a, so within, I think 2, 3 days within I posted that Facebook post, I got like 1 gig immediately. And she told, you can start writing tomorrow, no problem. And I was like so scared, like, oh my god, what did I getting myself into? What am I going to write? I had no idea about writing content at that time. Then she told, it's okay, we have another person, like another intern, she'll help you. You can both write together. So I started writing for her, and I think I wrote around 12, 15 articles for her. And then I think the pandemic started, like after 6 months, I started writing for her. The pandemic started, and after for a few months, everything was like completely stopped, because people definitely we are at a crisis, and there was nobody was bothering about content at that time. But then slowly, again, this Bitsian community, my alumni, my junior had one of my juniors have a startup, so he approached me, and then again I got like gigs like that. So after one set of content gets over, immediately somebody will kind of spring up. So it was kind of like, I don't know how it happened, maybe because of the strong community, probably because I have seen a lot of people in the writing groups, I have seen a lot of people struggling to get work, maybe because they are not in the right circles. Because if you when you know a lot of entrepreneurs, there is a lot of job opportunities. So that's the plus. So I whenever I think about going to bits, right, even though it was a crazy decision at that time, it has been whatever it was meant to be. I feel like, that gave me a lot of opportunities in the terms of people I know, and all the entrepreneurs, all the work I got initially. Then I think thankfully I wanted to expand. Of course, I wanted to, and the pay rate was like 1 rupee per word as becoming. I used to write a lot of content. I used to write about, you won't believe this. I used to write about chana dal. I used to write about, there was a exporter, so he wanted to write about the export items like green gram, horse gram. So I used to write
Like, wait,
about.
what was he writing about? I didn't understand. So, like, for his website.
No, no, he had a manufacturer as a client. So he had a pulse and grains manufacturer as his client. So for their website, for each of these pulses, they wanted an like kind of description
Oh,
and
wow. Oh, wow.
history and scientific things. So I wrote about green gram, horse gram. So still remember my husband used to say, "Oh my God, from Bluetooth you have reached Chanadal." And from Chanadal, where will you go? I was like, but the funny part was, it was like, it was kind of interesting. At least I'm not getting going and sitting in an office and getting bored. and and so I learned all about all the pulses and everything. Then I thought, yeah, maybe it's time to stop writing about Chanadal and move on to something else. So at that time, I came across a job board called, I think, uh, Right Plus Jobs. I think it was called Right Plus Jobs. So it's a very good job board for international gigs for content writers. So through this Right Plus Jobs, I came to know about the Blogsmith, where I am working as a content writer for like past 2 years. So that I think from the like 2021 September, I am working with Blogsmith, and it has been a very good experience. And I am steadily working with them. It has become like a full time job for me with flexibilities. So it is very flexible as such. Like I only take up whatever I want for a week and then work on it. So it's that also, the content writing also has been, and it's a very I don't know whether this can be like sustained with AI and all threatening us every single day. I don't know whether I'll have the same job after the 15 years or even 5 years. But yeah, for some time being, it's like it's working out, thankfully. But yeah, there is always uncertainty in this field. Cannot say what happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, AI is, yeah, the new, like, I think, threat, so to speak, for a lot of these, like, content writing, copywriting, like, a lot of those kind of jobs. But yeah, I mean, hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
AI is a real threat.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah. Chat. You'll see all these Chat GPT demos and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay then. But no, having said that, like I mentioned, you also like self-published a couple of books, right? There's The Magic Square, your latest one, Lost Edges. So then what drove you to that decision of, self-publishing, especially because, like, you clearly already gotten pieces out in like literary magazines and whatnot. So do you then I wouldn't say it would make it easier in that sense, but at least it gives you some credibility when you're pitching to a traditional publisher or an agent for that matter, because they're like, okay, this person is someone who has like a certain quality of work since they've gotten published in, XYZ magazine or anthology or whatever. So then, did you try pitching to traditional publishers before taking that decision, or was it like, no, I'm just going to go ahead and self publish?
Uh, no, like for Magic Square and my first two books which I have published, it was through KDP first. So because I'm an engineer, I understood that KDP is like an easiest way to publish, and I was not like kind of intimidated by the technicalities of publishing through KDP. So I just went ahead and published because at that time maybe my knowledge about the traditional publishing system was very limited. I just know I had to publish a book and there was KDP. I published it, so there was not much thought went into it. But with Lost Edges, my debut novel, actually I pitched a lot, but unfortunately I started like as soon as I started pitching, the pandemic started. So there was like a lot of places and there were a lot of backlog for all the traditional publishers, and they were like I got a lot of rejections on that. I tried the traditional way for at least 1.5 years. I tried pitching even after pandemic. I think the whole of 2021 I pitched, 2021, and I think till the middle of 2022 I pitched, but things were like I think very turbulent in most of the publishing houses at that time. And they were like many of them, some of them responded saying that we are full, like we have so much backlog, we cannot take. Yeah, some of them I came very close with one or two publishers, but some of them I couldn't agree to their terms, and some of them there was waiting time for like 2024 times, so it was in like 2023 beginning. But then I thought I have experience publishing it myself, so let me try it anyway, because the Lost Edges I have been writing for like 9 years, so I wanted to get it out because I couldn't move on. That's the main thing. I wanted to publish that book and move on to something else. So that's why I decided that okay, I'll publish it self, because after 1.5 years of pitching, I was like in a very bad place personally, and I couldn't move on from that novel. I wanted to write something new and move on to something else. So just so I thought I'll publish it end to end. So this time I didn't go with the Notion press or anything. I just printed it myself. I'm selling it on Amazon as a seller. So it's been a huge learning process, and I sometimes I wonder why I jump into things like this. Like, I mean, what is wrong with me? This was also such a decision to publish, because I wanted certain kind of standard for this book, like the typesetting I wanted specific way, I wanted the chapters in a specific way. So I that was not coming, like that not many people offered that kind of, when you're so specific with so many things, like writers cannot be like so demanding, to be honest. Most of the times you have to
Yeah,
go with
in
whatever.
publishing, yeah, you'd be surprised.
You have to go with whatever they give you. But I talked to a few of them and I was not ready with whatever they're offering. I was not as happy, so I thought, okay, why not? And I jumped into the process, and it has been such a difficult thing to do. I mean, I really have high respects for all the publishers. No, and I know their pain. Okay, now I don't blame any publisher for anything because I know their pain personally. I know how much they make, exact figures. I know how much they make. I know how much Amazon takes, how much money Amazon takes from a writer and a publisher. So, but it has been a very huge learning experience for me. And yeah, sometimes I feel like there are second thoughts. Okay, maybe I could have gone with that publisher, this publisher. But yeah, but the thing was the book had to go out. I had to get it out of my system and I have to forget it and move on because you cannot cling on to something for so long. And then I'm writing, so the next book actually I am writing, so that is with a traditional publisher, so it's a novella with the Red River Press. So this is like, yeah, this is going to be in the next, like next year hopefully it will come out. And so that's been a very different experience for me. So I have experienced now self and traditional how it is going to happen. I think both have, like, I think you are coming to that actually. So both have their merits and demerits. It's not like, both have pros and cons. Like if you talk in engineering terms.
No, because the reason I was coming to that is because, like, obviously now self publishing has increased, and now I think the quality of self publishing is also kind of improving, right? Like, now I think people are a lot more like, there is a certain standard that's coming up even in self publishing. Because, even, I mean, the fact of the matter is, till date, a lot of traditional publishers don't give self publishing that kind of respect, like the way they would give a traditionally published book. It's still very much there, like a lot of them still kind of look at it, oh, it's not going to be good, it's not going to be well edited. And I can't even completely blame them, because a lot of self-published books are still not up to a certain, there are very few that actually do a good job. So, which is why I was like, then, does it become risky to take that decision? Because later, obviously, if you want to work with a traditional publisher, the minute they see like, oh, she's self-published, like it becomes like a thing. So that's why, did you go through that kind of conflict of thought when you were making that decision?
No, the self publishing. I was not kind of worried that a traditional publisher won't pick up a self published author's book, because I think there are a lot of writers I have like model. There are a lot of people who are doing this both traditionally and self. For example, Andaleeb. Andaleeb is publishing her books through published traditional, and whatever whichever she prefers, she published through self. So I think kind of traditional publishers are now kind of getting used to that thought process. Like, okay, some writers want to publish both ways. So I was not much worried about that. Like, okay, I may not get a traditional publisher, because like some of the traditional publishers were interested, and they kind of even told me like, okay, we would like to see your future works. So I never had that kind of worry. But yeah, not getting a traditional publisher was very disappointing for me. I'll be honest. It was very devastating getting so many rejections, and I couldn't figure out like why. I mean, it's still like why.
I can tell you
I
why.
mean,
And it has nothing to do with the quality of your manuscript.
why me? I always thought. But yeah, then I thought like, yeah, maybe I keep writing. So like at some point, like whatever is destined to publish with a traditional publisher, it will come up. So say for the example, this Red River Press story, the novella, actually I didn't even pitch to them. So the editor read a short story of mine, which was kind of got like 46 rejections. I posted it on Facebook saying I got 46 rejection on this. I don't know what is wrong with this story. Then she told, send me. I'll tell you what is wrong with the story. So this is Sujaridatta Datta. So she is the editor of Bangalore Review. So I kind of know her. She read it and she told, see, this is not a short story. This is a longer form story. You have kind of bundled a lot of things into this. So you cannot, because it's very incomplete. So that's how she asked me, do you want to write a novella for us? Then I was like, as usual, I said, yes, okay, I'll expand this 5,000 word story into a 35,000 word novella. I'll do that. Then I was like, after I told her, I sent the mail and everything, I was horrified. Oh my God, what I have got myself into again. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I never learned, I thought. Then somehow, yeah, I kind of she I worked with her. She has been very helpful. Like that's how I really realized that the editor in a traditional publishing system is a big, very big part. I mean, it's just the biggest advantage of publishing with traditional. Even though you want to self publish and have a editor, it is going to cost a lot. So if it's going to be a really cost a lot for a self published author to get a really good editor at that level. So I think that is one of the biggest advantage of traditional publishing, which kind of, I feel like that every writer deserves a good editor,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah. Yeah, because an editor can really make or
Yeah,
break your
yeah, yeah.
manuscript.
Yeah,
Like,
so even for Lost Edges, I had a freelance editor, Pankaj Giri. He's a writer also. And also, when working with him, I realized that a lot of things that his editors can really make a change to your manuscript. There is a lot the editor can make a difference. Really, it can, as you said, make or break the book. So, yeah, I think that is one thing about traditional publishing I really love. But I have only worked with two editors. I never, I don't know, but both of them were like really amazing.
yeah, yeah, no, I think yeah, editorial sometimes doesn't get the sort of credit it deserves because a lot of people think it's easy, but it's not. I mean, I do manuscript evaluations myself, and only when I started, I realized the kind of work. And it's like you said, you when you do that, you go through that process yourself. As a writer, also, you have immense respect for people sitting on the other side because you know what they're going through when they're looking at your manuscript, and
Yeah,
you're like, so I'm also consciously when I'm writing now, like, okay, no, I'm like, cannot make copy edit mistakes, cannot structure like this, cannot do like that, because I know this is going to irritate like the person so much. But yeah, I completely agree. But having said that, like, when obviously you decided to like switch into freelancing and self-publish and whatnot, like, were there any like assumptions or misconceptions you faced about what you were doing? I mean, okay, granted, your family knew you well enough to be like, okay, she's impulsive, she will do whatever she wants. But like, were there things you just generally faced that, oh, like, say you're self-published, so this won't work, or you're freelancing, it's not very viable, sustainable? Was there anything you faced like that?
yeah, a lot of things actually. I learned a lot from my mistakes, basically, because I was because coming from an engineering background, I had zero experience in writing and zero experience in publishing. So for KDP, I think KDP was as a good system. So Kindle publishing is a good system. They have made a good system, and you just have to like, because the system is robust, you don't face a lot of issues with Kindle publishing. But when it comes to print books, it's such a difficult thing for a writer to self publish a print book in India,
Yeah.
because yeah, there are a lot of self publishing companies, but I have heard a lot of horror stories. Like, take any publishing agency. I'm not blaming any of them, but at least one or the other author has a bad experience with all of them. So if you go around, ask, okay, which is the self publishing company you like, it's very difficult to get a solid answer. Oh, these guys are solid. They are like, like any other traditional see, because somehow many people are ready to give money to get a good print of their book and make it available on Amazon or bookstores. I mean, bookstore is another story. It's like a big another kind of full episode we can do on what happens with bookstores. It's another
Oh
big
my
story.
god, yeah, yeah. Distribution is
Yeah.
yeah, is a subject on
So,
its own.
but the some of the things which I felt when I was publishing my first book, like Magic Square, I published through Notion Press, and I was not very happy with the print quality as such, because the consistency of the color of the cover was not good, and also the interior print, I felt like it felt like so kind of, what you say, kind of what is a very very I can't call it classy, basically. So it was there. It is kind of usable. It is readable. It's okay, but it's not like very classy as you see with the nice traditional publishers. And when I was doing the like, I know when I was pitching for Lost Edges, I also tried with a lot of self publishers books I bought. They also had this, the typesetting, the print quality, the cover. So it is not comparable with, like, say, Harper Collins or Penguin. So that is the main thing I felt. So printing and distribution of physical copies is difficult. I mean, that is something which all self-published authors struggle, I guess. Most of them, many of them go with one of the self-publishing companies, and I'm not sure how many of them are super happy with any of them. So that's why one reason I took up the process myself. So I found a printer and I told him this is my these are my conditions. But still, when you print like small quantities in a small press, there are a lot of problems with the printing. So it's not easy as like if you go to Ripro. They are the professionals. So, but Ripro will not print less than 700 copies. So that is a challenge. So for me, getting out the print copy was a little bit challenge with the lost edges, and setting up on Amazon was a challenge. And but thankfully it takes, I think it takes a little bit of trial and error. So if you want to be a self-published, completely self-published author, I think it just takes a bit of trial and error. Like find a printer who works best for you, and like registering on Amazon as a seller. And I have also contacted many bookstores in Bangalore, and they actually graciously agreed to keep my book. So they just had a quality check. It's available in Blossoms. It's available in Atta Galatta, because they wanted to check the book quality first. So when they knew that okay, the book is having a good quality comparable to other books in their store, they were okay with it. I was so surprised, and actually I was euphoric because my book in Blossom was like such a great. I met Mai Gowda, the founder of Blossoms, and he was very receptive to my idea. He told it's fine. I told, do you accept self-published book? He told, see, it's not like self-published or traditional published. It's about the quality which I keep in my store. I cannot keep any and every book in my store. There is a limitation. So I think this print quality is the biggest challenge for self-published authors. And when as an author, you have a concept of your book in print form. It has to look like this. It has to feel like this. Even for me, I'm a perfectionist, but I have had a feeling like how the touch and feel of the pages should be for Lost Edges, and that was not working with other self-publishing companies. So that's why I went with the printer. And with the But I think there is a lot of things that can go wrong, because self-publishing is for writers who can handle all this stress. That's what I feel. People who cannot handle all this stress, like I will just write and somebody please publish me. I mean, I totally understand that kind of, I totally understand you. Okay, if anybody is listening to this and feeling the same, I totally understand your feeling, because sometimes end of the day you are a writer, you are not an publisher, or you are not an entrepreneur, you're not anybody else. But trying to self-publish, trying to get in the business of all these can really take a toll on your writing. That's what I
Oh,
have felt.
yeah.
So,
110%.
so I felt the burnout. So this year, May, I published my book until I think for 6 months before I started the publishing process, and it really took a toll on me, and I totally burned out by the time the book came out. And from May, I think I started book marketing. That is another big,
Yeah, yeah.
huge
Oh, God.
investment out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So from May to December, I've been totally burnt out to the publishing process, the marketing process. So now I understand why some writers don't care about all this. Okay, they just want to write. And I also want to be in that kind of a space, because I don't want to worry much about all these aspects, which is not my expertise, because my expertise is writing. So some people will tell me like, okay, you publish your book to like alone, no? Now you can start a publishing company because you know the process, right? I tell, see, initially when I had that crazy idea, but thankfully I'm like, no, no, stop. That is the limit.
You
There is a
never say never, Shalini. Suddenly, a few years down the line, you'll be like, I'm starting a publishing company. I won't be surprised if that
no,
happens.
it takes some time. So that's what I feel. It takes a lot of time from your creative process. So being a creative person is kind of what you say, it's a kind of a meditation. For me, I felt, because I know the both sides. Now I have seen the side of being a busy entrepreneur, a publisher, a person who sells and packs her book and send it to Amazon, like 20 copies I have to pack. actually, when I feel like it takes away the that kind of stillness from your life. You're always worried about something or the other. So I feel like, yeah, if I have to self-publish, I can do it through KDP, and I can do it through a self-publisher. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to bother so much about going through this so difficult process, because as a writer I need that stillness in my life. I want to be, clear about this aspect, that I'm not a publisher, I'm not anything else, I'm just a writer. This is something which I learned. The biggest learning this year has been this. Because let let I mean, I'm not saying if somebody can do that, well and good, like they can do it, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. Because, and book marketing is another thing. You get into that and it's like another black hole. It can totally absorb your creativity. You will be like crazy. You are putting posts on Instagram, you're putting posts on Facebook, you're checking how many copies has been sold. It all can take a long toll on your creativity. Because at some point, I think I know some writers who have been marketing their book for like 2 to 3 years now, after its publication. But for me, it won't work like that way, because I have to say stop somewhere and move on to the next thing. That's my biggest learning from the entire self-publishing adventure which I took. I'm not saying I will not self-publish, because if no, if like, yeah, if the need happens and if I feel a piece is fit for traditional self-publishing, I'll definitely do it. But the thing is, you cannot become everything.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult to become everything. It takes away kind of your attention to different things. So, I felt it's very tough to do everything myself.
Yeah, that's why it's a business.
Yeah, yeah, you cannot, like, but there are people who do it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, of course. There are people who can pull it off. No doubt about it. Because I had another guest on the show in season one, Ashna Lola. So she self-published like a, this. I don't want to call it a coffee table. It's like a coffee table book, but it's about like she and like another person who did the photography. They went and documented different homes in Madras, and they interviewed people, and they kind of made this compilation of the architecture and also the history of these homes and the family stories with it, which was really cool. And it was self-published because she was pitching they were pitching to so many traditional publishers, it just wasn't going through. And they took the decision to self-publish, and they were so particular about quality, they would go to the press themselves. So when she was like, yeah, it's a tedious process, but at least, like, it's like to as per the standard they wanted. So like it's really cool to see different people kind of get into this space and do it. Similarly, there was another guest who did a bonus episode with us, Aditya Manija, who used to be commissioning editor at Penguin. And he said, he's like, I was like, I can't do editing anymore because it's going to change my relationship with reading and books. And he's like, I'm not comfortable with that. So he was like, I'm taking a step back from this, and I'm going to just be, freelance writing and doing other things. So it really is like, it's a different kind of stamina to be a publisher, to be in this industry, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree. The stamina part, I totally agree. You need a different kind of stamina to be in this space and deal with all these.
Yeah, it's really it's something else. But moving on to lighter subjects. So like you mentioned that you used to write in Malayalam and then switch to English and realized it was easier for you to write in English. But having said that, do you still write in Malayalam, if I may ask?
Yes, yes. I still write. I write in the sense, like, try to translate from my English stories, I try to translate to Malayalam.
Oh,
So
so
it's
it's the
kind of a
reverse now.
little bit twisted way, because I think in Malayalam, then I write in English, and then I translate into Malayalam. So it's kind of a little twisted. But I feel, yeah, Malayalam, like mother tongue, is definitely a big influence in anybody's life. So you think first, because I am from a Malayalam speaking, Malayalam reading generation, not like, I'm not an expat Malayali, I'm a person who born and
Yeah,
brought up
because
in
I
Kerala.
can't I can't read and write Malayalam. I can speak it, but I cannot read and write the language.
I have a very strong relationship with the language. I really love it, and I really read a lot in Malayalam, and I try to write also. But like, for me, and I feel like some of certain hyper local stories, I think it's best to be written in the original language, because you cannot, maybe then you can translate probably into English or any other language, but there are certain hyperlocal stories very difficult to describe it in English, like to narrate in English. So that's that way I feel like. And I kind of, in the past few months or year, I've been feeling a very strong pull to start writing in Malayalam also. Like I want to do both. It's very kind of, yeah, because I feel like, I mean, this is a language which I was born and brought up in, which I have a lot of respect and love for. So why not, when I can write, when I am writing, why not do that also? Like, because I don't worry about the years I didn't write in Malayalam, because I think the languages are something like, once you start using it, it comes. It's like, either you can write or you cannot write. There is nothing like you lost your ability to write in between. Yeah, your vocabulary may suffer for a while, but as long as you start writing, it's fine. So I think, and I really love to write in Malayalam, because it can also connect with people who you love, because your family is in Kerala, like, all your best friends and all people very close to your heart. There are a lot of people who wants to read your Malayalam prose. So there are a lot of people like, why are you writing in English? You're a Malayali. I, so I tell them like, see, even I want to do that, because it's a different feeling. Both are, I think, different feeling, writing in Malayalam and also, but I'm little kind of anxious about writing in Malayalam, because I have not lived in Kerala for like last 15-20 years. So I've only lived in Kerala till I was 17, and so like last past 20 years I've not lived in Kerala. I don't know the local vibe, if you call that. So I don't know. Like there are a lot of awesome writers from Kerala, young writers who are living in the vibe and capturing the vibe of the language, of the culture, and how it changes. And I have more become a metropolitan citizen now. I have become like, so. I don't know, but I really, so I'm just having this plan of writing a novel about Wayanad. Wayanad is my birthplace, and there have been recently a novel about Wayanad called Valli by Sheila Tomy.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so
I've not read
she,
it, but I've heard
yeah,
a lot about
she
it.
has written in Malayalam first and been translated to English.
It was on the
And
JCB list.
yes, yes, it has been on a lot of lists, and she has written about Manandawadi. It's a place near to my place. My place is Sultan Batheri, and she has written about a history beautifully about Wayanad. So when I was planning to write a novel about Wayanad, I read her novel. It's kind of different time period. This set in a little older time period, but I kind of felt so good reading it, because I have not got a chance to learn about my hometown so much, because I moved away for a lot of things. I always feel nostalgic. So I think this is a good way. Writing about a place is a good way to reconnect with it. That's my main idea. I don't want to. I'm not bothered about getting published or anything right now. I mean, novel is just in a kind of a seed. It is just germinating. I feel like it's a very good way for me to connect back to the roots. Maybe I'll be writing in English again, because maybe trying to do write about in a large canvas in a Malayalam novel may not be a easy thing to do for me, at least. But yeah, but I think, see, going back to writing in mother tongue means you're in your roots. That's very important. Especially my daughter cannot read or write or even speak Malayalam properly. So I feel the pain now.
Yeah, I mean, because it happened because I mean, I was born in Trivandrum, but I've been in Chennai since I was like a 3-month-old baby. So, like, my parents had the issue where when I started school, so when I started like kindergarten and stuff, apparently that first 1 year, I did not speak because I couldn't speak a word of English. I could only speak Malayalam. So they had to consciously make the effort, and then there was a phase where I had difficulty speaking Malayalam because it was such an English thing. And then now somehow I'm again like getting comfortable with the language. I think that's also to do with the fact because my parents still make the attempt of speaking at home. My grandparents would speak to me in Malayalam. So you don't have a choice but to then converse. And then you're watching so much of Malayalam movies or whatever media this thing. I think that also really, I mean, I'm sorry, like growing up watching a Mohanlal Mammootty or Suresh Gopi Jera movie every weekend is like, then it's like ingrained in you, the language to some degree.
Yeah, I think the culture you live in and you born, even though you don't spend so much time there, whatever your parents' language, your parents, your mother tongue, and your culture, like whatever comes from your own place, it has a lot of influence, even though we don't realize it. Because in Malayalis, there is something I have observed that we have a lot of film references when we talk. When you go and talk to a Malayali, he says something a film reference, and I immediately get it.
Yeah, almost immediately. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
And non-Malayalis were like, okay, what are you even talking about? But we have that kind of a thing. And I think it's so difficult as a metropolitan citizen, as a global citizen, having that kind of a thing to connect immediately is so. I have seen that I've even started speaking to stranger Malayalis, and within 5 minutes we are talking about that Malayalam movie slang. We are talking about some character. So that kind of connect is so wonderful. It's it's almost magical.
That is true. I think, yeah, I think the way stories connect in Kerala is amazing because even the literature is so rich. Because I mean, I always knew Malayalam literature, there was like this sort of abundance, but I think now because I've gotten into publishing and there is a certain interest in translated work and regional language literature, is now when I'm increasingly realizing how rich that work is and that world is, and I really want to try and like get into it and read as much as I can. Like, I mean, one being because we even discussed this book in that fiction class, which was Hangwoman by KR Meera. I
Yes,
finally
yes.
got the book, so I'm like,
Oh,
I'm so
okay.
determined to like but the English translation. I remember you mentioned that the Malayalam one was a lot more intense when you like read it. So I'm excited to dive into that. But no, what I was coming to with the Malayalam English question was that so obviously now when you're writing in two separate languages, how do you feel like your like do you feel like your process is very different or it's similar, or can you actually feel that the way you're processing things is different when you're writing? Because you said you think in Malayalam, write in, which I found very fascinating. How do you like how does that work? So I mean, what is it like when you're writing in both languages?
So for me, I think writing in Malayalam is more. I think it's a more intimate experience. It's like so writing in English. What I feel is like in English writing, there is a lot of theory and it's very systematic. How you approach it, how you structure it, and there is a lot of more systematic. It's a systematic process for me, and you have the drafts, and you have the revisions, and you have the everything. So like it's go from one version to other revision. So even though I don't write Malayalam so much, I recently kind of tried to translate a few things I wrote and another novel somebody else wrote. So I felt like it's more of an intimate process. You don't feel there is a filter in between you and the writing. So you whatever is you're just writing it. So it needs revision, like every writing needs revision, but it's like there is. So English, I felt it goes through an additional layer of filtering, because I have to stop and think, okay, what is the word for this? And sometimes I get the Malayalam word for it, and I don't know the English word, so I go and Google. I type in Malayalam this and meaning in English. How do we describe this feeling in English? But I think when you write in Malayalam, there is no filter like that, because it comes like. But being said that, I felt like some things are very difficult to express in Malayalam, especially romance.
Really?
Yeah. For me, at least, I felt whenever I write romance, I feel like I'm writing like Malayalam. I feel like I'm writing in some 70s movies romance.
Prem Nasir is coming from the
Yeah,
background.
I mean it's so kind of cliched, and I feel like, oh yuck. But because I think in English it's like saying I love you is like that those kind of words have become like very common and very normalized. But in Malayalam, if you try to write that kind of words, it feels
It's
so
too, yeah.
something. So I felt like, and also the emotional certain like if you when you write about depression, I found it very easy to write express in English, because there is a lot of, I think there has been lot written, and there is a lot of emotional, conveying emotions is kind of, for me at least, it's very easier in English. And let it be two characters very intensely conversing with each other, it's easy in English. But in Malayalam, when I try to write it in Malayalam, same thing, I feel a little awkward. Maybe it's about it's a culture also. Okay, Malayalis are like a little reserved kind of people. We don't go around say I love you to everybody, or we don't we don't say thank you all the time. It feels like if you say thank you to somebody who are very close, they take it as an insult. Why are you thanking me for something? Because it's my responsibility. So I think it has something to do with the culture and society also. Yeah, but the thing is, certain local aspects, say myths, and say I'm writing about this Kutty myth in English,
Oh, okay.
so that is like the novella. Next time the one that's coming, it's a fantasy, mythical, magical realism blend kind of a thing. And I've taken this Kutty myth from Malayalam, and I'm trying to place it in English, and it's been very difficult because the rituals, the things we use, the objects we use in that puja and everything. So those kind of things, the hyper local rituals and hyper local language people use, and all that has been very difficult to write in English. So yeah, but I think I need to yet to get that fluency back in Malayalam, because this kind of, anyway, it's a skill, right? So you have to keep it sharp. You have to for the words to flow, you have to let it kind of flow. If you keep it stuck somewhere, it won't come out. So I think practice is an important thing. So I think once I start writing more in Malayalam, that also will come probably.
No, no, that's amazing because I think translation is something you can definitely look at as an added skill set because now I think especially for regional languages, I think so many people are interested in translating, the English titles into different Indian languages or even others. So it's definitely a very, I think, useful skill to have. And it's great to be able to translate something into your mother tongue, right? So it's more accessible to people, which is really cool. But yeah, now we're kind of coming towards the end of the interview. So first thing I want to ask you is, what are the kind of writers, books, shows, movies you really like, or basically, what are stories that have impacted you while growing up, or even just otherwise in life, like writers who have inspired you, or just stories that have really like hit you and been like, oh my god, like this is really sticking with me.
So for me, like it's very different from what I write. I really love crime and thriller and fiction. So uh, I really love stories with suspense. So and I don't know, I cannot watch something which doesn't have suspense in it. I always look for thriller movies. I always look for suspense, and I really love a crime investigation, like a good crime investigation. So I think that is very different. I don't write in that genre. I am not even like trying to write in that genre, because something which is something I respect too much to tamper with.
I actually want to try writing that genre at least once.
So growing up, yeah, there have been, like as I said, Kamala and Vaikom, Mohammed, Basheer, and all those things. All those writers have influenced me. So what I find in their writing, the common thing is like it's so connected to the real life. It's like very very connected to the real life, the real people, and it's very rich. When you read the prose, right, it's so deep and rich. You feel the richness. I don't know how to express it. So that's what I want to also incorporate in my writing, the richness of it. When you somebody reads a page, you feel like, wow, I had a good meal, or I mean, it should enrich people whatever they write. And I really like crime fiction, especially Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes. I am like big fan girl. I've read every single thing he has written, and but I really have kind of thing for this dark kind of stories. No, the dark things, stories that explore the dark side of human psyche.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like romance. Yeah, I enjoy romance, or like or other things like very hyper realistic stories. I enjoy to certain extent, but I enjoy stories which kind of dig into this weird psyche of people. somebody said so. Yesterday I again rewatched Amityville Horror because I was so fascinated by this person's thought process of going and killing all the family members. I mean, what he has been going through. So this kind of twisted psyche things kind of fascinates me because I am, as a normal human being, I am unable to go through that thought
Think, yeah,
process.
yeah, like that, yeah.
So that kind of crime, thriller, and courtroom drama,
Room,
I really love.
oh,
Court.
yeah, same, same. Maybe this is a Malayali thing, I don't know.
So wonderful. I watched seven seasons of Good Wife like last two
Oh,
months. So
wow. Oh, wow. Okay. I've only watched one season.
I cannot stop because even though there is such a nonsense going through with all office politics and all, I mean you don't know who is running the office anymore, but still there are cases so interesting. So I think, and my interests in and humor. The other thing I am really interested is humor, and I also love writing humor because it's something which I write without any stress. I really enjoy writing it, especially about my family members. Maybe a way of taking revenge, but I wrote a piece about my husband in Reader's Digest. It has become a big hit with my family because everyone agrees.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I really like watching humor in Malayalam movies. Malayalam is like so good. You cannot compare it with
I think the
anything else.
comedy in Malayalam movies, I'm sorry. If you know the culture, if you know the language, it's just another level.
So I keep watching older Malayalam movies like Kudhravattum Pappu, his scenes. There are certain scenes which I really love. I keep watching it. So that is something which but basically my writing and my interests in reading or movies or that it doesn't have any similarities because I am a totally different person as a writer. My writing is totally different than a person I am. So when some people meet me, like they expect this very serious person. Oh, okay. Then when I go and talk to them, they're like, "Can't believe you wrote all that kind of stories." Like, so I don't know, like, but my interests are all because it is refreshing to have. I think different interests than your writing because otherwise you will be like reading the same stuff and writing the same stuff. So
Yeah, no, because I love crime thrillers and like true crime as well. I think it's like you said, I love this whole thing on psychology and like this courtroom, this very investigative. Like I think it's so cool, it's so fascinating. In fact, I think the Malayalam like Malayalam language, like in movies itself, I think there's so many good like crime stories, investigations. I mean, shout out to CBI Diary Corp, though they have ruined the latest movie. But yeah.
I think first three were really good. Yeah, I
Yeah,
grew
the
up.
first 3, yes, oh my god, this is the exact same thing I told someone, like, the first 3 were actually, no, first 2 third was okay, the fourth was actually not bad. I'm sorry we're having a conversation about films now. Yeah, so no, it's like you said, it's really good, like, shows and series. You should check out Mindhunter if you haven't already.
Okay, no, I have not. I
Yeah,
have to.
it's on Netflix. So it's about how they came, like the concept of criminal psychology came like in the 60s, 70s in the US. So it's by David Fincher. So it's very dark, very interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah, but now kind of moving to our last two questions. So first up is, what are you looking forward to? What are your aspirations? Just things, in the near or distant future that you're just like looking forward to.
Yeah, so I'm not a kind of person who plans a lot. That might have been very evident from whatever I told. I just jump at things and then okay, sometimes find myself in a soup and try to really hard to get out of it. But yeah, for me, I think the only plan now is write. I mean, just write whatever. Like, I mean, so this right now, the immediate future, I have this novella, which I'm doing, I think, the fourth or fifth revision with the editor. So she's very like, she pushes you hard, but still it's kind of within, limits of, like, I know that she's trying to like polish it a lot. So the immediate future is the novella. I am looking forward to it. Like it's been started as a short story in 2020. So 3 4 years I have been with it, and like really looking forward to publishing it with Red River Press. And then I think about the novel, like about Wayanad, and it's going to be a big canvas, big novel. So I'm really scared whether to start or not, like very intimidated by it. But yeah, but still there is like a few characters are developing in my head. So it will be really good to, it will be a really good homage to my place, my roots. So that is one thing which I want to, because that will again take another 3 4 years for me. I'm very sure about it, because I tend to do things very slowly. I don't write a lot, because my novella Magic Square was in 2020, and then I wrote the by novel. I took 3 years in between, so I write very slowly. And my plans as such, see, yeah, I just want to write as much as I can, as long as I can. So there is no other plan per se, because I think if you write, keep writing, everything else will fall into place. Publishers will come, and readers will come. Everyone will come. But the most important thing for a writer is to concentrate on the craft and try to improve, not bother about, I mean, yeah, you can bother about readers, publishers, you can bother about fame and everything. Yeah, everyone, we are all human, we bother about all that stuff. But I think writing has to come first, then the other things follows. So like Three Idiots, they told you how to concentrate on perfection, then everything else will come in your way. So I just hope and pray that I have that mental ability to concentrate on my craft and not get distracted with all other stuff, all other stuff that comes as a part and parcel of creativity, like all your insecurities, all your fame, and sometimes there are a lot of distraction from people around you who like or dislike your work. So I just want to be stay away from all that, and have that stillness within me to write. So that's what I have learned in this year. The biggest learning I know, that I need to distance myself from all that, sit with my craft and perfect it. So that's the long term plan.
No, that's amazing. And I think your dedication, and you have a discipline for doing this. Also, I know we said we're coming towards the end but now I'm like just curious to know this. Like, then do you have like a writing routine since you're kind of doing this every day now?
Yeah, yeah. So it's because it's my full time job now. I just started as a normal office day, like 8:39. I start sit at my desk, and mostly I write for some of 1 or 2 hours. I write my content because I have to submit one article per week. So I kind of balance it with, so mostly like mornings I write fiction, like maybe 9 to 11, 11:30 I write fiction. Then in the afternoons, when I'm comparatively like kind of tired, I write my content. So every day at least 4 to 5 hours of writing goes in. So because content actually demands a lot. So I don't write in, like, because since thankfully I have the privilege. I really call it a privilege, because not a lot of people get this privilege to sit and write at the time when others go for work. Okay, I'm not saying it's not a work, but there are people who write at 4 a.m. in the morning, 1 a.m. in the like, so it's there are a lot of people, and I call it a privilege, because having this routine, having the privilege to have this routine itself is a big thing, and I wish I never take it for granted, because getting 4 hours writing a day is something huge. And I think it wouldn't have happened, like, if I had a full-time job. I had to squeeze in a lot of things. So yeah, but I'm really thankful. Whenever I sit in front of my computer in the morning, I'm so glad and thankful for having this opportunity.
That's incredible. And, to more great pieces, by you. And finally, what is a piece of advice or learning you would like to share? This can be personal, professional, creative, just something, you've experienced in your life and you wish more people were aware of.
Yeah, so like for me, there has been a lot huge transitions in my life, like from engineering to creativity. I mean, being a creative person. I mean, I have been a creative person, but still, moving from full time job to a creative field has been very demanding. And I think everyone wants something like that, because everyone wants to find a passion. That's what I found in common in all human beings. We want to find our passion. We want to be passionate about something, be it it may not be creative fields or anything. We want to find some passion, but a lot of people are searching for it. So I think if you're for for finding a passion, the most important thing is curiosity. So you have to be curious about things, like just it's been, I know it's a bit cliched, like it's like they say, don't settle. It's not in the
Hmm.
sense of worldly sense of settling. No, it's not like you can't have family or you can't have a job. Sense settling in the sense of don't settle mentally. Don't settle things thinking that okay, I cannot do anything more. Okay, don't say that this is my life, and I it's done and dusted. There's nothing more to it. So I think that curiosity to, like, it need not be a big thing. You don't have to quit your job and do something. It's just be like a 2 hours on a weekend, or a 1 hour a weekend. Doing something you like could actually lead to something bigger. After when you do it for year over year, like for a 5 years, you have done something for every weekend, it becomes a thing. If it means to be, if you're passionate, it has to become a thing. And I know a lot of people, including myself, who has done this, like doing something you love for a little bit, little by little, and then kind of moved and it became a thing. So suddenly people come and ask me, like, how did you find your passion? So I tell them I didn't know that it was my passion to start with. It just, I did it first, and I did it again and again, and it became my passion. So what I'm trying to say is, like, sometimes when you think about it, like making a big change in our lives, we feel it's a huge thing. We have to topple our entire life. You have to cut all our ties with everybody and all that. It's not. I mean, it's just that you kind of, instead of overthinking it too much, just have that 1 hour, even a weekly 1 hour, or even you have like even monthly 1 hour. The persistence is the key. So if you can do that, if somebody can, without thinking too much about future, what will happen to me, what will happen to my passion, whether it will become a profession, once you have all that kind of stressful thoughts, things become very difficult for you, because you cannot immediately convert a passion into a profession. You may never be able to convert a passion into a profession, to be honest. But yeah, doing that, like, take a little small steps, and persistence. I think persistence is the key. Because yeah, I mean, you have to, if everyone has to admit that we may not be a genius in our passion. For example, like, I will never become a, like, I may never become a Nobel Prize winning person's level of writer, but it doesn't matter. Okay, because it's not the point. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not the point to become somebody or something. It's the point is, you enjoy it, you find meaning in it. It allows you to be happier. I mean, in the sense, not happier all the time, but at least find some purpose and meaning in it, rather than just going over your life in a autopilot mode. That's what I feel.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice. And yeah, I think I agree. I think that whole point of not settling just because you think that that's it. I mean, if there's something you want to do and you want to do more, and I think keeping that curiosity alive, like you said, then yeah, I mean, go for it. You only get one life, so you might as well do what you can with it, whatever it is you choose to do. So yeah, on that note, we've now come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for being here, Shalini. It was lovely talking to you. I hope you had fun.
Yes, yes, of course. I was like so happy to, talk about all these things. Like, it's always a pleasure to talk about literature, the writing, to the like-minded people. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. So that was my conversation with Shalini Vineeth. It was so much fun talking to her about Malayalam literature, books, writing, and self publishing. closing this episode with an excerpt from Shalini's book Lost Edges, narrated by her. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week with a new guest and a new chronicle to share. Talk soon! And don't forget to vote for the Closet Writer Chronicles for the Podmasters Awards under Arts and Entertainment.
I'm going to read a small portion from my novel Lost Edges. Rue de la Marine was thriving with joyous crowd. Couples walked under the moonlit sky with their fingers intertwined. Kids ran around holding pink cotton candy sticks that resembled balloons. Everyone seemed to be in bliss. Whenever I looked at another person, I imagined how better their life was. Will I ever be happy? I sat on a concrete bench by the beach and stared into the ocean. It was a full moon day and the sea glittered like molten silver. Silver white clouds dotted the Prussian blue sky. The wind carried a warm smell. Popcorn. I couldn't resist it. Nibbling onto the popcorn, I watched the crowd dispersing. I didn't bother to go back to the hotel. Time seemed like a never ending continuum. My past, present, and future slowly vanished. It felt like I was hovering above my body, curiously looking down at myself. The critic in my brain turned quiet. I lived in the moment. The next morning, I saw the National Youth Hostel's trekking poster during breakfast. I decided to give it a try and went to the ATM to extract the last bits of money from my account. To my surprise, the ATM slip showed a balance of 2 lakhs in my account. It meant Geedu was keeping a tab on me. I hadn't called her in a few days as I didn't know what to tell her. I left Pondicherry the following day and traveled to Chennai. I called Geedu from the railway station while waiting for the Duranto Express. She picked up the call on the first ring. You transferred money, I mumbled. It's okay, don't worry about that. Where are you now? I told her about my plan to trek the Valley of Flowers. I was expecting an avalanche of questions. Okay, I'll be going to Kolkata for a few days. You stay safe, she said. You too. Gidu didn't want to know the details of my trip. She didn't tell me why she was going to Kolkata either. I didn't know if it meant good or bad. The train soon pulled out of the Chennai Central. I sat on an inconspicuous window seat. My first stop would be Delhi, and from there I was planning to get a connection to Haridwar. The coupe was full of enthusiastic youngsters. Their banter and laughter filled the compartment like iridescent soap bubbles. What would Arnav look like if he was alive? Looking at those teenagers, I wondered. Surprisingly, it didn't pain to think about Arnav. Instead, a warm sensation filled me. Cities and villages traveled backwards at a tremendous speed. I kept looking outside all day, taking in all that I saw. Coastal villages of Tamil Nadu, green paddy fields lined with black palmyra trees, the scorched fields of Warangal, rapid rivers, and placid lakes. 2 days later, I reached Haridwar and checked into a modest dormitory, Baba calmly. The next day, I would report to the base camp of the Valley of Flowers trek. Sap, you go and watch the Ganga Aarti if you have time. It will bring you peace, the manager of the dormitory suggested. How did he know that I was in search of peace? Maybe everyone came to Haridwar in search of peace. I simply smiled at him. I reached the ghat half an hour early. As usual, I had nothing else to do. I got a small leaf pot of marigold flowers with an earthen lamp at the center of it. A white wick stuck outside the lamp like a collapsed tongue. I poured oil into the lamp, lit it, and offered it to Ganga. It had been a long time since I prayed, so I didn't try. I stood on the riverbank, staring at my leaf pot until it tumbled into the water. Soon the Ganga Aarti began. 3 pandits in saffron silk kurtas and cream dhotis stood facing River Ganga. They carried multi layered brass lamps blazing with fire. They started chanting mantras and waved their brass lamps in synchronized movements. Crowd echoed in the chants, the aarti gained speed, and the pandits vigorously whirled the lamps as if possessed by a spirit. The chants turned into a collective cry, for moksha perhaps. Soon the pandits changed their brass lamps for incense burners. Thick fumes rose from the incense burners, and the air carried a pleasant whiff of camphor. The crowd trembled with an upsurge of devotion. I closed my eyes, and it felt like I was inside a beehive. alive and buzzing.